North Korea's newest 5,000-ton destroyer, called Choe Hyon, just after being launched, flipped over completely. This made Kim Jong Un that his face turned ashen. They called it a launch, but it was actually a disaster. The roller slipped, causing the ship's stern to enter the water first while the bow got stuck on the slipway. The entire steel giant tilted sharply into the harbor and lost balance. With a loud splash, it ended up lying sideways on the water. This was supposed to be a national-level Navy showcase, carrying 74 vertical missile launch cells and worth $1 billion. Kim Jong Un stood nearby on the viewing platform and watched the symbol of the strong military line flip over as it entered the water. The scene instantly fell into a deathly silence. For him, it was not just a ship flipping. It was a military-industrial display meant to show the nation's power and boost morale, but it completely failed in front of the cameras. The Mission Impossible at the Chongjin shipyard. This damaged destroyer was built at the Chongjin shipyard on North Korea's northeast coast. The choice of this location had strategic reasons. The first Choe Hyon was launched successfully at the Nampo shipyard on the west coast, but it could only operate in the Yellow Sea. The Choe Hyon 2 had to be built on the east coast to fight in the Sea of Japan. No matter how well ships are built at Nampo, it's difficult to transfer them from the west coast to the east coast because the Tsushima Strait is controlled. Chongjin is North Korea's largest city and has one of the country's biggest trading ports with 30 berths for ships over 10,000 tons. However, the Chongjin shipyard only has experience building 20,000-ton cargo ships, fishing vessels, and dredgers. Simply put, this shipyard mostly builds light ships and has never made heavy warships before. Even worse, the hardware is not suitable. There's no dry dock and no longitudinal slipway. The harbor basin is narrow, shallow, and has a poor slope. To meet deadlines, they had to use a side launch method, sliding the ship sideways into the water. By contrast, the Nampo shipyard has a larger harbor basin, and the first Choe Hyon destroyer used a safer longitudinal greased slipway, sliding down the slope along its length. At Chongjin, this sideways launch means the ship and its supports slide sideways into the water. This causes violent rocking and puts extreme demands on the ship's sideways strength and stability. The rails must be perfectly aligned, all supports must release simultaneously, and the hull must have extraordinary lateral strength. Even in the United States, this method is only used for launching ships under 2,000 tons like littoral combat ships, and only after extensive modeling and real-world rehearsals. But North Korea forced this risky sideways launch on a 5,000-ton steel giant. The moment the ship flipped. According to the plan, the ship should have slid smoothly into the water at an angle, but at the very end of the launch, the rear sliding rail released first, and the weight of the 5,000-ton ship suddenly went out of control. The stern started to slide down while the bow was still held tightly by the support frame. The twisting force maxed out instantly, causing the ship's hull to deform. The steel plates groaned, the bridge shifted out of place, and even the covers on the vertical missile launch cells might have come loose because of the damage. Military experts on Weibo recreated the scene, showing the ship completely flipped over. Careful examination of satellite images reveals what looks like a structural bend in the middle of the hull. If this is not a lens distortion, then the damage is irreversible. The bow is jammed on the slipway, with the deck tilting up toward the sky. The stern is stuck in the water, with its deck tilting down toward the surface. The entire deck is twisted and no longer lies flat. Modern steel ships are actually quite soft. Their structure alone cannot resist their own weight. The hull stays stable and keeps its shape because of buoyancy, the support from water. On land, heavy supports must be placed under the hull to spread out the stress. Warships either need to float in water or lie flat on supports, or else their spine or keel will break. Looking at the ship's position now, it has clearly lost all support. It's safe to say the ship is a total loss. North Korea's jump from a 1,000-ton to a 5,000-ton warship is a huge technological leap that they definitely did not develop on their own. The Choe Hyon-class destroyer's design traces directly back to Russia's Gorshkov-class frigate. Its close-in weapon system is entirely Russian AK guns. The vertical launch system is almost a copy of the 22350-class frigate. Even the phased array radar looks very similar to those on Russian Navy ships. The timeline tells us a lot. On April 25th, Choe Hyon was launched. On April 27th, North Korea officially admitted to sending troops to Russia. But think about it. North Korea actually sent soldiers last year. Why only admit it now? It's to explain to everyone that sending troops wasn't in vain. They got technology in exchange. This timing is no coincidence. It's basically a signal that the deal is done. 100,000 North Korean soldiers' lives traded for a modern destroyer design. Now that the goods have arrived, they can openly admit the cost. But what Russia gave is mostly a face-saving project. Russia can barely produce its own weapons, so how could it help North Korea build theirs? Russia could only provide technical plans, blueprints, and weapon system standards. Russia also lacks the high-strength steel plates needed for a 5,000-ton warship. So those had to come from China, along with precision processing equipment, welding technology, electronic components, and power systems. China has all of these, but it never makes these transfers public. It's always done so quietly and kept strictly confidential because openly transferring military technology would bring diplomatic pressure and sanctions. Still, China must provide support. North Korea is a strategic buffer zone, and its military can't fall too far behind. The best approach is quiet backing without making noise. This creates a strange three-country assembly model. Russia supplies the technical plans. China silently provides the industrial materials and technology needed to actually build the ships, and North Korea does the final assembly and integration. Kim Jong Un wants godlike building speed, 1 ship launched per month and 4 modern destroyer fleets within 4 years. He personally ordered that this destroyer must be delivered before the June plenary meeting as a symbol of the new era strong military line. North Korea's June plenary meeting is like China's most important party meetings. In North Korea's political system, reporting military modernization achievements at the party plenary meeting is a key moment for Kim Jong Un to strengthen his authority and show his ruling ability. This rush-to-finish mindset is normal in North Korea's military industry. Just 3 days after the first Choe Hyon was launched last month, North Korea officially announced the completion of multiple live fire tests, including supersonic cruise missiles, air defense missiles, and 127mm naval guns. But looking at satellite images and South Korean military assessments, the ship likely still lacks a full propulsion system and may need to be towed out for testing. This is completely for military show. Political accountability and a mild response. Kim Jong Un was furious on the spot. He called this accident a major crime. Once he said that, a technical problem instantly became a political one. The factory director was taken away for questioning, and all responsible parties were investigated. In North Korea, what really needs fixing is the leader's reputation. Interestingly, although Kim Jong-un was angry, his way of handling it was relatively mild. He described the issue as carelessness, irresponsibility, and unscientific experiential mistakes and crimes. He didn't accuse anyone of enemy sabotage, betrayal, or disloyalty. Compared to his father, Kim Jong-un is definitely softer. He gave clear orders on the spot, didn't block the news, and the official Korean Central News Agency quickly reported it. The instructions were clear and almost without unnecessary words. First, they pointed out the root cause as experiential mistakes. Then they named the responsible departments and set deadlines. Finally, they acknowledged the frontline workers' contributions. This is 100 times better than Kim Jong-il's usual over-the-top reactions. Even more interesting is North Korea's crisis communication strategy. In recent years, North Korea has openly reported satellite launch failures and natural disasters. This time, they quickly reported the Syria's destroyer launch accident, faster than South Korean analysts expected. This proactive confession strategy is actually another form of control under authoritarian rule. Instead of being caught off guard by leaks and attacks, it's better to admit first and then use the situation as an opportunity for political cleansing. Politicized damage assessment. The irony is in North Korea's official optimistic investigation report. The investigation team, made up of prosecutors and experts, claimed that after detailed underwater and internal inspections, there is no hole at the hull bottom. The right side of the hull was scraped. Seawater entered through the rescue passage at the stern in a limited amount. Experts confirmed that pumping out the flooded compartments, detaching the bow from the slipway, and restoring the ship's balance would take 2 to 3 days. Repairing the hull side would take more than 10 days. But satellite images tell a much worse story. The ship capsized beside the Chongjin port dry dock, its stern submerged, with key parts like the vertical launch system and smokestack soaked in seawater for a long time. North Koreans covered the ship with large blue tarps, trying to hide it from satellite reconnaissance. The U.S. Strategy for Strategic and International Studies quickly contradicted North Korea's report. They said the sideways launch requires the hull to have a structural strength of at least 8,000 tons per meter. This 5,000-ton destroyer obviously does not have that. The hull likely suffered structural changes. Water entering the vertical launch system and smokestack is unavoidable. The real damage is probably much worse than North Korea admits. If this flooded ship followed all international standards for salvage, repair, and retesting, the cost would likely start in the hundreds of millions. If the keel is damaged, repairs costing hundreds of millions are normal. Even after repair, hidden damage would remain, shortening the ship's service life and causing early retirement. The most ironic part is that Kim Jong Un ordered the ship to be fully repaired before June. But this is not like changing a tire. It's about righting a structurally twisted 5,000-ton giant ship. When political will crashes into physical laws, reality always wins. North Korea does not have the lifting equipment to right the ship. Blind attempts will only make things worse. Forcing the ship to be dragged and repositioned will cause more damage or even cause it to flip over again. The tip of the iceberg in systemic problems. The ship flipping accident reveals a systemic problem in North Korea's engineering quality. Look at North Korea's official media report from May 16th. Accidents happen frequently under long hours of intense work, but the blame falls on workers for not being careful enough. Last summer, at a construction site for the Yalu River Dam, a young frontline worker in his early 30s named Kim was seriously injured after falling. Kim had been working 12 to 14 hours a day under heavy labor, and he hadn't been sleeping well for days before the accident. The site commander saw no obvious bleeding or wounds and didn't take special measures. Instead, he blamed Kim, saying he was weak-willed and couldn't take care of his body, so he rolled off with his eyes open. Kim was eventually diagnosed with brain hemorrhage and paralysis in his lower limbs, becoming permanently disabled. Insiders say these frontline workers are called tailless draft oxen. They're exhausted from non-stop day and night work, but site commanders ignore their health and safety, focusing only on results. They don't eat or sleep well enough, but must do overly heavy work. This inevitably leads to accidents. The data comparison makes it even clearer. North Korea claims the Choe Hyon destroyer took less than 18 months from project start to launch. In South Korea, building a similar ship normally takes 54 months. Why such a big difference? It's not because North Korea is more efficient. It's because they don't wait for technical readiness or mature designs. They just follow orders. To rush progress, 40% of the technical staff at the Chongjin shipyard are young people temporarily promoted, many of whom have never fully participated in a ship launch process. It's like letting interns fly fighter jets. It's only a matter of time before an accident happens. The gap between ambition and reality. North Korea's east coast faces the Sea of Japan. If it has 5,000-ton warships, it could fully take control of small islands in the Sea of Japan and threaten Japan's coastline. But without warships, what can North Korea do? Its air force is too weak even to defend itself, let alone conduct cross-sea operations. What can a few dozen MiG-29 fighters do? They would just be cannon fodder for the Japanese self-defense forces. Even if the army is strong, it can't cross the sea. You can't make tanks swim to Japan. Without a navy, North Korea would only play a minor role after war, sending soldiers and shedding blood, but gaining no land. The Sea of Japan is actually a military vacuum. China has no naval outlet to the Sea of Japan, keeping most naval forces in the East China Sea and South China Sea. Russia's Pacific Fleet has few large ships. Its base at Vladivostok is even weaker than its Black Sea Fleet. If North Korea had a few 5,000-ton destroyers, it would really dominate the Sea of Japan. North Korea's naval plan is clear. In peacetime, patrol the Sea of Japan with these ships to assert presence and pressure Japan and South Korea. In wartime, while China and the U.S. fight intensely along the first island chain, North Korea would seize islands and waters in the Sea of Japan from the flank. After war, having actual control over territory would give North Korea a voice at the negotiating table. North Korea is closest to the islands in the Sea of Japan and can act fastest. Once war breaks out along the first island chain, the main forces of the US and Japan will focus there. China and Russia won't openly support North Korea, but they won't stop it from looting while the fire burns. Controlling the islands and waters in the western sea of Japan is like holding a knife to Japan's back. So the failure at Chongjing is a huge loss. The second destroyer is ruined, and the joint fleet schedule is completely disrupted. Without enough warships, North Korea can only be cannon fodder in future wars and gain no real benefits. Time is running out. The US-China confrontation grows fiercer. Tensions in the Taiwan Strait rise. War may come sooner than expected. If North Korea's navy can't keep up, it will watch helplessly as China and Russia divide the spoils. Epilogue. Physical laws don't change for politics. Under that blue waterproof tarp, what's hidden isn't just a warship. It's a major setback for North Korea's plan to seize territory. The ship's value in corn would buy about 3 million tons. North Korea's food shortfall in 2025 is around 1 million tons. 3 million tons of corn would eliminate hunger in the country for 3 years. The destroyer, made after tightening belts and enduring hunger for 3 years, is probably useless now. They'll have to starve for another 3 years to build another one. You have to admire North Korea. The country's GDP is less than $20 billion a year, about the economy of one county in eastern China. Yet in less than 10 years, they made nuclear bombs, satellites, submarines, warships, and even hypersonic weapons. North Korea shouldn't be mocked. There are few countries in the world that can build 5,000-ton warships. Russia hasn't commissioned a new surface ship over 5,000 tons for many years. But when reality fails, they rush to silence news, block photos, and erase memories. Unfortunately for North Korea, the weight of 5,000 tons of steel doesn't get lighter because of the leader's will. This accident was a perfect storm. The design of the ship came from Russia, and the manufacturing was done in North Korea with limited technical expertise and intense time pressure. It's like giving a bicycle mechanic a Ferrari blueprint and telling him to build it in a month. Of course it will crash. Kim Jong Un himself said unacceptable major accidents and crimes caused by disrespect for scientific, experiential knowledge. But right after that, he gave an unscientific order. The repair must be unconditionally finished before next month's plenary meeting. The highest directive is vague, and political needs always outride objective laws. North Korea isn't really building a navy. They're putting on a military show. Time doesn't follow an engineering schedule, but a political rhythm. Technology is expected to yield to orders. Science bows to face-saving. When political will crashes into physical laws, flipping the ship is the inevitable result.